Hi, welcome. This is a roughly 30-minute video about the Way of St. James from Porto to Santiago de Compostela. This is the so-called Portuguese Way of St. James, which originally starts in Lisbon, goes via Porto and Vigo, and finally ends in Santiago de Compostela. Here's an overview of the different Camino de Santiago routes, and Porto is a starting point, a section of the Camino de Santiago which goes to Santiago de Compostela. Here's a brief overview of the different locations. If you want to take a quick look, you can press stop here. I will make a video and give various impressions of the Camino, mainly to inform friends and family members. If there is interest from the Camino de Santiago, that's a typical pilgrim way. Pilgrim greeting, Buen Camino. I will address various topics here. Then I will put in the background some background music. I will show you images. And here we have, for example, a view over Porto and our starting point. How did we complete the Camino? We did this with 2 children and 2 adults. We are approximately 40 years old and our children are still quite young, aged 3 and 6. Here is the first kilometer marker and the ground in Porto, so in Portugal, next to the cathedral. That was our starting point for the Portuguese Way of St. James, which goes from Porto to, as I mentioned before, Santiago de Compostela. And that's a total distance around roughly 280 kilometers. We did that with stroller or beach buggy, if you would like to call it this way. Our children have to have always some breaks and the opportunity to sit a little bit. No? We didn't want that they walk around with such a young age, 3 and 6. So typically they need more breaks. What we typically do, we started at 6 a.m. We put them still asleep into the stroller, and we just started like this to make some distance, especially in the morning. Just to give you some impressions, here's, for example, the way marker or the yellow arrow sunk into the stone. Camino Portugués da Costa, the Way of St. James along the coast. So what exactly is the Camino de Santiago? I don't want to dive too deeply into the topic. You can read a lot about it on the internet these days. On Wikipedia you will find information. And this is way more than 1,000 years old, a Christian way, a pilgrim magnet. There are also many subroutes from the way, but they all end and have the destination of Santiago de Compostela. You can also walk the so-called Camino Frances in North Spain and the Camino del Norte, also in the north of Spain. There's also the so-called Via de la Plata, which starts in Sevilla and goes also to Santiago. Anyone who wants to know more about the way, you can find information there on the internet. And that's the topic of the Camino de Santiago. Why do people walk the Camino? The reasons are very diverse today, as the amount of people and the quantity of people on this planet. Some want to escape everyday life, some want to experience the sporting thrills. Many people do that for religious reasons, and there are many tours also on the Camino de Santiago. We decided to do the Camino because I met my wife for the first time on the Camino, and we simply decided that it would also be a really cool thing to do with our children, despite various challenges we had along the way. So they get to know the Camino de Santiago, as it is also an important part of our lives. I've written down some various points. I will show you some images in the background, as I mentioned, background music, as I said before, so it doesn't get too boring, as this is a long monologue, so to say. The series of images lasts about 30 minutes, so 32 minutes. In the end, I will give you like 4 or 5 minutes of short clips, short videos, to give you some impressions of the Camino, and especially the Portuguese coastal route. Whoever is interested in seeing them in that regard, we decided accordingly, we decide for this route to do it with a stroller, because simply we wanted to cover the distance in our own way. Roughly, we estimated to go between 10 and 15 kilometers. So yes, how can you do it? Of course, there are many ways to do the Camino de Santiago, depending on the preferences and priorities regarding equipment and shoes. You can decide on shoes like barefoot shoes, what I did. You can decide to walk barefoot at all. That is also possible. I would not recommend to start barefoot walking this way if you don't know how to walk barefoot. And there are many other shoe types, shoe models you can use. Trekking shoes. You can use whatever you believe is suitable for hiking. Hiking boots as well. You can do it in your own way, in your own time. It's your path, and you should not let anybody decide how you do your Camino. So you are completely free to do that. But for comfort reasons, I would definitely recommend it before doing the Camino to walk at least some long distances the days before or weeks before, so you get used to the walking rhythm. What else can I tell you? So a little bit of practice before is recommendable. If your goal is to walk barefoot on the way, as I said, you should definitely organize, plan, and inform yourself about that beforehand, so that you prepare not only mentally for this way, but also really physical, and to have a kind of deeper knowledge how your walking rhythm is, what you like, what are your preferences. Of course, there are many opinions and preferences, but in general, it's a good idea to familiarize with the topic. On the internet too, you find a lot of information about the way, and nowadays you can even use AI for preparing for the Way of St. James. What we did for the accommodations, we booked the accommodations in advance, so that we would have a sufficient distance between the respective accommodations or apartments along the way, approximately between 10 and 15 kilometers. The goal in the end was to cover these 280 kilometers by foot to Santiago de Compostela with the children. And of course, to cover this distance, under good, in good shape, in good health, in good conditions. We deliberately choose or decided on shorter distances. Normally, when pilgrims walk as adults or alone, normally experienced hikers or pilgrims, they walk, let's say, between 20 or 30 kilometers daily. 10 or 15 kilometers sounds a little bit less or not enough, but for us it was quite good to walk it this way. As I said, there's also plenty of information on the internet. I don't want to cover all different details and information on this. Here you get just some impressions, a few pictures, and what is going on, what the atmosphere is like, the landscape. And one has to say that the landscape is very beautiful. The coastal path really does run along the coast for a long time, so you experience many moments where you can also go to the beach. And our children did do that. What we did occasionally, we just rested along the way, and we stayed on some parts and on some beaches for a longer time. Of course, we wanted to go some distance, but the children also wanted to play on the beach with the sand. And yeah, of course, you have somehow to manage it, to prioritize the different parts, and we did it in this way. The distance was quite good for us. So for the first few days, we did that in the way with a stroller. We walked the distance. We felt good. And the temperature was good. We were there in June and July, but in 2026. But it got really warm, so really hot, you have to say. And we had to plan accordingly. We drank a lot of water. We drank a lot of water. We drank a lot of water. We planned accordingly. We put a lot of sun lotion, sun cream. I'm from Germany, and normally I'm not so used to do it in this way. But over the course of the year in Spain and Portugal, we get used to do a lot more sun cream. I switched also to wearing clothing specifically for hiking, trekking clothing, which actually had a sun protection factor incorporated into the material. So such clothing exists now. You need to do your research accordingly to find such clothes. One important point related to the weather, of course, is it was very hot. The temperature is up to 30 degrees. However, because we spent most of the time skating along the shore, the temperature felt significantly lower. But nevertheless, you need to be careful not to get sunburn, like I almost managed to do, to get sunburn. We were able actually to manage the weather quite well, drinking plenty of fluids, wearing sun protective clothing, applying sun lotion, and also avoiding mainly the hot middle of the day. One point actually we did not anticipate it or expect before doing our organization and planning, that we did not expect to have apartments without air conditioning. So that was one aspect. We spent like 3-4 nights in accommodations without air conditioning, and the rooms were quite hot, and that was really difficult to manage. And then we really struggled after 7, 8, 9, and especially the 10th day. We were really not in a good mood. If you sleep badly, you walk in a bad way. No sleep means no good walk. And then on the 10th day on the Caminos, it was roughly in the region around Vigo, we had covered roughly about 150 kilometers. And that was the moment we decided, okay, that's enough for now with the Camino. And we switched from the pilgrim modus to the tourism modus. So we switched from being a pilgrim to being a tourist. We also got the last pilgrim stamps there in Bayona in the region on our credentials of pilgrims, and that was it. Our pilgrimage ended there in Bayona after 150 kilometers, and we decided to travel and then by bus or by taxi if we needed to. We were very happy that we have spent these days, this time on the way. We have so many impressions, many experiences, many landscapes we have seen, and this is definitely something we would like to repeat in some form in the future. Incidentally, that was the first time that I, personally speaking, had to abandon a trip, to stop a trip. I've been on the Camino for the last 4 years. In 2008, I was on the Camino Frances, and in 2010, I completed the Via de la Plata, and in 2018, the Camino del Norte, the coastal route in northern Spain, and these were all long-distance hiking trails or pilgrimage routes. And I finished them accordingly in the destination Santiago de Compostela. This time it was a little different. It was 2026, and this time was the first time I didn't. I have walked for the first time with children, with my children, the young children, 3 and 6 years old, and we had set many different priorities. In comparison, if you travel alone, you have other priorities, but if you walk with children, with minors, the priorities shift accordingly. So now talking for roughly 18 minutes. What else can I say about the Camino de Santiago? I've summarized some important points. Pardon. A few more impressions here, a few pictures that I would like to show you, to present to you. Overall, one can also say that the culture gets to know on the Camino is very interesting, because one part of the way in Portugal and one part of the way runs through Spain, obviously, and that creates also this quite contrast between walking in two countries, in Portugal and in Spain, on the Camino. So to get to know two countries is an interesting aspect. You see like many beautiful perspectives, many different cultures along the way, different people, different mindset, and it's definitely a route I would like to repeat in some form, because it has this facet that other Camino routes might not have or show as intensely. I think it's also interesting for many to know that this route is rather short compared to other Caminos to Santiago, which are up to 600, 700, 800 or even 1,000 kilometers. Which also run through Spain. And from my point of view, this path is also clearly suitable for beginners, for starters, for people who would like to have such experience, but let's say are not very active. No, for people who live rather like a couch potato, we used to say it in Germany. So someone who doesn't do a lot of sports, or movement exercises. So people can do that. Of course, some people they can't think about it. It's also okay. I'm always happy when I go on a trip. There are always new impressions, new challenges, new experiences. Everything that you do or don't do it usually have in your everyday life. And as it often is the case, most people spend their lives more or less in one place, and maybe do not travel a lot or do not leave their place at all. The Way of St. James, which is with its aspect of languages, is a place where people come together because the route naturally runs along many paths, many ways, many moments where you simply wander through tourist areas, and of course there's infrastructure available, so there's no need for traveling with a lot of food. You will always find a place for buying food, or you will find restaurants as well along the way. So the civilization lives also quite close to the Camino. And we booked our accommodations in advance. It's possible to do it. You don't have to do it. We wanted to have this factor. Yes, we wanted to book it. We did it via booking.com. This is one website where you can book for the way, or other accommodation also in other places. Booking.com. I don't get any money for saying this name, but I organized our journey with the help of this website. There are of course other websites as well. With a reference to the picture you see here, this was our last day of pilgrimage. In addition to the heat, the accommodations without air conditioner, our stroller broke down actually after 10th day, after 150 kilometer. It just broke, and we decided, okay, we will do it in another day and at another time, and we just left the stroller there next to the street. This was also part of our way. Looking at my list here, I have touched on several different topics. First, the reasons where the way is actually located, what the way is, the hiking shoes. In terms of clothing, we talked a little bit about the weather accommodations, the heat that can you expect in such place. And the destination, of course, is Santiago de Compostela. It is the way of St. James. We have also arrived in Santiago de Compostela, but not as planned as pilgrims by foot, but as simple tourists with a bus. So we covered the remaining 130 kilometer approximately by bus, and if needed, or a certain situation, we call also 2 times or 3 times a taxi. So there are many ways to walk the Camino, so everything is fine. However you do it, you will find your way. You have also to keep in mind that you naturally need to be and to prioritize your health, do plenty of breaks, drinking enough water. It has to be managed well. So that is also quite a pleasant experience. Unfortunately, many people have to give up even in the last few meters before Santiago, simply because they overdid it. They overdo it and they do too much, or they have the wrong equipment, the wrong footwear, and it's quite a pity, to be honest. So you need to prepare well yourself, inform yourself beforehand exactly how you would like to do it, and being prepared is already part of the way. Here we are already in Santiago de Compostela. Our last accommodation in Santiago was at the biggest albergue, Monte de Gozo, and the largest hotel. Here we have now our stamps, and we are in the place of Santiago de Compostela, near to the cathedral. The cathedral you see in the background. Here is the stone shown again in the ground. It's the stone with the kilometer 0. This is where all kilometer markers are based on along the Way of St. James. And that's a typical picture, of course. My children, my wife, and myself here with my everyday shoes. So this here we are at the airport. This is also a small miniature from the cathedral from Santiago de Compostela. And that's it. We have done it. Here we have the various distances we have done and the corresponding locations. I now have small series of short clips, short videos. It takes 4 to 5 minutes, and just to give you some impression, a little idea how we have done our Camino. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Bye bye.
que no va